Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is Season 5, and this is Episode 64, a playoff edition of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. Have you tried the Canadian Club Ginger Ale? Crisp, refreshing alternative to beer. It's well-balanced with flavors of ginger, subtle notes of rye and spice. The new formula has 30% less sugar and 20% fewer calories. That is Canadian Club Ginger Ale. Ray, you're a huge golf fan, very avid golfer. Does Cammy golf, by the way? I don't think we've ever talked about this. Does
She
Cammy
does.
play golf?
Yeah, she does. She went away from it for a while, right? Like when the kids were occupying all their time. And last couple of summers, she started to play again. And no short game, but she can hit it. She can hit it.
Wow, she's an athlete, right?
Yeah.
So how much time would you and Cammy spend together playing golf?
I don't know. We play. I think our goal would be to play 9 holes a week for sure. I think that's about, given the fact that her job is an everyday job. Me, I get out I squeak out another. I get out another 4 times per week, but a little 9 and dine usually gets it done.
That's perfect. And so the reason I'm bringing this up now is Holly has all of a sudden taken a significant interest in playing golf. Like, excellent. As we're recording this podcast, she's taking a lesson at Royal Ashburn, which is a beautiful club not far down the road. And instantly I'm like, is this a good thing for me?
I think it is.
Well, I think it is. Like we have a golf course literally right behind us at the Cabbage. I've talked about it. A beautiful lakeside 18-hole executive course. So in that respect, based on the fact we summer there and can walk and spend time and play 3 holes or 9 or 18, yes. But selfishly, it's in my head that, okay, well, normally in Ontario, I play twice a week just because of scheduling and whatnot. So am I giving up one of those 2 times?
Yeah, you know what's going to happen, Dregs? I don't think you are. No, I don't think you are giving it up. But here's the second thing. She's going to start to play. She's going to meet women that play at her course. She doesn't want to play with you anyway.
That's fair.
She's going to go, oh, this is great. Oh, yeah, and now I get my friends and I'm going to play. And I think it's awesome. And I think you'll scrape together more holes than you think of.
Yeah,
I think you will. I think it'll happen.
I'm glad to hear you say all that because I don't want to sound like this 50s selfish, hey, golf is for men.
Well, no, but you do sound selfish, but that's okay.
Well, I kind of do it. Who's kidding you? I'm not trying to hide my selfishness here. I'm just you're a sage veteran.
Does that make it okay? I'm trying not to hide that I'm a selfish bugger here, but I want to play.
Maybe I'm more worried she's going to be better than I am, and then we've got a real problem, Raymond.
That would be something.
I'm
going to tell you last thing.
We
played. This was years and years ago where we're playing and we're playing a par 3. It's a 17th hole and we were in Cabo and the sun was setting. It was coming into our eyes. So you couldn't really see the pin. Cammy hits her tee ball and the sound it makes when it hits the flag, like bang. And I'm like, oh my God, if that went in, I'm going to be so happy and so sour at the same. So we get up to the green. The ball's not on the green.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this thing's in the hole. So I go, well, you better go check. And so she walks up. She goes, it's not here. We had no idea where it is. It was buried in the bunker. She took like 6. She couldn't, there was no way to get it out. But for a moment, it was like I've had 1 hole-in-one in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if she started playing and gets an ace out of the bucket here, this is, not happy.
No.
Because, of course, I would have never forgotten or never
as
not
competitive as you and Cammy are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just in the blood, right? That's just how you're born. That's why both of you had successful careers and continue on, etc. So we play a men versus women scramble at the lake. Right.
Okay.
And it's like, I mean, there's really no rules at this small golf course. You can play 6-somes, 8-somes, whatever, everybody's out there having fun, but it's beautiful. The conditions are immaculate. You can imagine how competitive it gets. Husband versus wife. And I mean, people are cheering when you're missing a putt from like 8 feet. Like it's just like, what are we doing here? What is happening? So anyway, that's what's going on here. All right, time for headlines, Ray. Brought to you by Tim Hortons. Prepared fresh to order, new oven baked flatbread pizzas. Delicious lunch and dinner option at your local Tim's with incredible value for your money, starting at just $6.99. Now listen to this, Ray. 4 choices.
Yeah.
You've got bacon everything.
Okay.
Bacon on everything. I mean, bacon on anything is delicious, but the bacon everything flatbread pizza at Tim's is delicious. Here's your personal favorite. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. The chicken parm. Chicken parmesan.
How could there be a better comment? You can read whatever you want. I'm ordering the chicken parm.
That's it. Okay. And then you've got the standard, the classic pepperoni. And, for the kids, I don't know what your kids were like. Just simply cheese. Just a cheese pizza. Don't put anything on it. That's what my kids like.
Our younger guy, Reese, he's 14 now. He's just graduated to pepperoni. For like 13 and a half years, he's eaten 1,400 cheese pizzas.
That's
Reese,
awesome.
what do you want on your pizza? Cheese is good.
Just cheese is good.
Fantastic.
4 delicious options at Tim Hortons. A flatbread pizza.
Oh, it sounds awesome.
Coach news around the National Hockey League, particularly here in Canada. Why don't we start with the Ottawa Senators? Travis Green, the new coach of the Ottawa Senators. I like it. I think that this is a good fit. There was speculation on the work that Steve Staios, the GM, was doing, and maybe talking to Craig Berube. Would Todd McCullough be a fit? Your buddy Dean Evison did good work in Minnesota. They like the character of him, but it's Travis Green that emerges as the next head coach of the Sens. Why is he a good fit in your mind?
Well, look, I've known Travis a long, long time. And one of the reasons I think he really fits as an NHL coach is that he came into the league as a top scorer. Like he was a top scorer in Spokane in the Western Hockey League. He was, going to be an offensive center when he came to the Islanders. And then when he got there, just prior to that, I got traded there and Pierre Turgeon got traded there. And there was no room at the inn for an offensive guy. So Al Arbor said, I need you to check. Well, Greeny didn't have a clue how to check, like most of us coming out of junior. And so he had to learn a different way. And so he was a scorer, then he was a checker, then he was a depth guy. He pretty well had lost his guaranteed spot. He was clawing and hanging in. And then he became a glue guy on a team. Like he's touched every part as a player. As a coach, he's now, how old would Greeny be? He's early 50s, I guess. Yeah. He's had a long road of coaching starting in junior in Portland, and he's worked with young players. He's worked with experienced players. He's made some mistakes. He's had the opportunity to go backwards and kind of polish up what he might be better at. Why I think he's good and a good fit in Ottawa is that this is, no matter what we think of Ottawa and where they are in their rebuild, Dregs, they are really young. I think next to Buffalo, the youngest team in the league. Like Buffalo is the youngest team across the board in the league. And you cannot win in this league if you are the youngest or near the youngest and you don't have good goaltending. Both of those things have to be true. So why I think Travis is good is because I know he realizes this is a really young group. I know he has the ability to coach and be really a stickler for details for young guys to learn. And, I know the previous group that was in charge had stated a couple of times, the rebuild's over, we're ready to compete. And I think this is an acknowledgement that that's not the case.
Right.
And when we talked to Steve Staios, when he got hired, and, I mentioned I had played with him before, Steve is about as methodical a person as you could be around. Like he just is. He's just like, and then he hires Dave Poulin, and we've all sat there next to Pooley and his highlighters and how he's got the neatest notebook in the history of broadcasting.
Yeah.
And so their hire to me makes perfect sense that it's a details first guy. And that's why, I mean, they got a lot of work in Ottawa ahead of them because they're loose around the edges and they are young.
Mm-hmm.
And their goaltending is iffy at best. And now you got, how long's the deal, Dregs? Do you know off?
Well, it's multi-year. I've heard 4 years. So,
so there's some time to put this together here.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. So Travis leaves the New Jersey Devils, which is a bit of a surprise. I mean, maybe Tom Fitzgerald and Devils ownership wants a tad more experience, which is why, you connect Craig Berube to the New Jersey Devils. There's been communication there. Potentially he's a fit. Toronto also has to make a call on Sheldon Keefe. And if the call is that Sheldon has had long enough and it's time for a change for the sake of making change, if available, Craig Berube would be a target for the Maple Leafs as well. So the jostling of the coaches is far from over. And we'll talk about Winnipeg in just a moment. But could you see Berube being a nice fit for both the New Jersey Devils and the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I always kind of giggle when I think of Craig coaching because of the way he played, right? And like when I first met him, it was like, if he's skating along the red line, there's no need for me to be here. Like it's maybe time I'll just shuffle over to my side a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's not a complicated coach. He's not a complicated systems guy. He's direct. He wants communication and he wants to give the player his job and have the player do it. Like there's no real confusion with Craig. Yeah. And I think he's a really good fit with several types of teams. He's calm. And I think that in today's game, calmness is a real factor because things are happening faster and faster. You got to be able to think slow on the bench, but be sharp. I'm not surprised he's all over the news as potential for these jobs. Not at all.
So does endorsement of player matter? And not necessarily current, right? But I'm thinking as you're talking about how straightforward Berube is, if I've had players who have played for him say that, well, number one, he's the best coach they ever had. And then that's saying a lot, right? I mean, you make it to the NHL and you're a successful NHL player. I mean, chances are you've had more than a few coaches in your time. But one of the qualities of Craig Berube is that he is impossible to bluff or lie to, right? Like comes up to you after the game you played last night. Maybe you were practicing. How do you feel you played last night? Yeah. You know what? Yeah. I think I was pretty good. No, you were hoarse. You know what I mean? And then quickly, the player goes, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Well, okay,
does that even matter?
Okay. Well, yes, it does matter. It's funny. Everybody says they want direct communication and they want honest communication unless it's too honest. And then a lot of guys don't like it and they get their feelings hurt. Yeah. Like Al Arbor used to have this thing basically was, you can ask me anything, but you better be ready for the answer. Yeah. So, if you said, hey, Al, why am I not playing? Mm-hmm. And then he would tell you, well, too bad if your feelings got hurt, you just asked. And so that's basically what you're talking about there. Yeah. I think past player endorsements only kind of sort of matter. Because some guys are gonna like the coach, some guys will not. There's an old saying that in a room of 20, the job of the real job of the head coach is to keep the 5 guys that hate him away from the 5 guys that are undecided. Mm-hmm. And because there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like the way they were treated. If you remember back to when Craig was fired in St. Louis. Jordan Kyrou had a comment right away. Yeah. And we actually had Craig on the pod right after that.
We did.
And he went right to Kyrou's defense. He said, I've already talked to him. We're totally good. Yeah. And at that point, there's no skin in the game anymore for Craig to call Jordan Kyrou and try and smooth that over. He's already fired. He's not going to coach him again.
Yeah.
And Kyrou made his bed. Now you got to lie in it. But he wanted people to know that's not right.
Yeah.
There is a simplicity and an honesty to Craig that I think would go a long way. And the two teams you've just connected, I think would benefit from that.
Sure. It's so much about culture, identity, structure. I mean, sometimes these are just catchwords that we throw out there, right? In trying to identify how the good teams play. But
you know what the
Rick
good teams all have?
Yeah.
They all have good players and they all have good goalies.
All of them. That
all
is
of
correct.
Them.
Yeah.
So I didn't know you were transitioning to Bones, but that's one thing that if you want to ask any coach, they'll say, yeah, you know what? Good players really help. And, a goalie that can erase our mistakes. That helps too.
Yeah. And Rick Bowness had great goaltending in Connor Hellebuck. And, as we talked about the last time we recorded the pod, it was expected that Bones would announce his retirement. He has. What a great guy and terrific career. So many games coached as an assistant.
2,600 behind a bench or something?
Yeah, it's higher than that. I think it's over 2,700. It's just a remarkable number. But what he did do is bring those things, and I didn't mean to make light of it. He did bring those things to Winnipeg. There was some dressing room stuff that needed to get addressed, and, the experience of Bowness helped address that. So now you've got Scotty Arniel, who is more than capable, right? I mean, he was thrown into action because of health issues through, Rick Bowness's wife, Judy. Rick himself had some health concerns. So Scott Arniel is a strong candidate. He is ready to be an NHL head coach. However, I do expect that the Winnipeg Jets will go through a bigger process before a decision is made. Is that the best way to handle this process? I guess it is if you're not 100% convinced that Scott Arniel is the guy to lead this team into their next chapter.
I think it would be foolish to not talk to anybody else.
Yeah.
What if you think that Scott Arniel is that he's the right guy, and then you talk to somebody else and you go, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. Yeah. This guy has a real feel for our team. The other thing is, it is really difficult. And it's not my opinion. It is through historical reference to look at a coach that is an assistant that takes over the same team. It is a really difficult transition because the things that make that coach an excellent assistant coach, a lot of them have to go out the window. It's like hiring a head scout to become a general manager. The one thing that head scout does great, he's not going to do anymore.
Yeah.
Right? He's not going to scout. He's going to be the manager. He's got to put the whole organization together. Now, Scott would have to coach the whole team. And you said, look, he went in when Rick Bowness was away. Everybody knew Rick was coming back. That's not the same thing. And the only people that would really have a good feel for that would be Kevin Cheveldayoff and his management group. They would have a feel for it. Did that feel like it was a good thing on a short-term thing, or can it be more? And we can all have our opinion, but we're not in there. They have real on-the-job experience and look at Arniel. They have it. And so if they're going to talk to some of the other coaches, and I would think as I said, they would be foolish if they didn't. As much as you're looking for the next coach, you're confirming that you have made an internal choice that you're comfortable with.
Sure. Yeah.
To me, it's like it's a no lose for them. They get the look, and they've already got a guy that they like.
Excellent. All right. Back to Toronto for a moment, Ray. Mass coverage, and it kind of makes me chuckle because it is what the market is in Toronto. And for some, it was automatically assumed that Brendan Shanahan would be out with a first-round loss. That was just widely assumed by mass media. I never believed that based on people that I talked to. And Friday, Shanahan will meet with the assembled media with Brad Treliving, the general manager, and the new boss of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, Keith Pelley, who obviously wants to present this show of solidarity, right? Management is strong here, from the face now of MLSE to the president of hockey ops and Brendan Shanahan, and of course, your general manager. So is it as simple as saying, all right, well, you know what, Sheldon Keefe did a nice enough job, but, you know, he does have the baggage that comes with 5+ years, right? Wasn't able to lead this team over that hump. So, you know, we make a coaching change for the sake of change, as we alluded to earlier, or is the problem where I think most of us recognize in the construction of the roster and what they have to do in trying to move out a core piece like Marner, which is going to be incredibly difficult. And frankly, I know the agent Darren Ferris well. And the one thing I know about Ferris, Ray, when his players, his clients, are going into the final year of their contract armed with no move clauses, generally they make it to free agency where there's no trade because the player is like, nah, I'm just not I'm going to control this process, and I'll control it as an unrestricted free agent when the open market opens up. So do you have a crystal ball? And if so, what do you see?
Yeah, well, of course I don't. And the three management people that are going to meet on Friday clearly tells you, you know, they're not going out there to meet the media and then one of them's going to get fired on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like that's not happening. I think a lot of the speculation about Shanahan came with Keith Pelly being hired, and that, oh, you've got a new umbrella boss, and, you know, if they don't win around, that he'd probably like to, you know, put his own stamp on things. This team doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because we just watched it not work again. Dregs, we're not talking about can they be a Stanley Cup contender. We're talking about can they win a round.
Yeah.
Win a round. Like, how is that? How is that a measure of success? How low does the bar have to go? Like, they have got tremendous players. Tremendous players. And the one thing that the core four was all about was that they were going to outscore their mistakes. They were going to be a solid offensive team. You know what they lose by in the playoffs every year? Because they can't score. It doesn't, there's other factors, sure. They never score. They never score.
Yeah.
They won 2-1 in game 5 in overtime, 2-1 in game 6, and lost 2-1 in game 7.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. The record rolls around again and again. The team does not work. So I do think there's accountability across the board for it. I think Sheldon Keefe, in my opinion, coached as good a first round as he could have. He made some moves that were strategically really sharp. He got the team to play a playoff style finally, which of course he probably would have liked a lot sooner, but he got them to play this style that brought them to within an overtime goal of moving on. It feels like it's like behind the bench that they need to look in another way. But I'm Sheldon Keefe knows how to coach. And I know these people in Toronto will say, and they'll be pissed at him, and he can't do this and he can't do that. And I saw it, I watched it, and in talking to him and for the limited times that we get to before games, I was really impressed in this series. I really was. That all being said, this team does not work. And, you know, you're talking about a core piece. So, you know, John Tavares just, I think he gives you what he's got.
Yeah.
And he really does. And he is open to whatever role that you need to have him to play, but he's at $11 million. And he's not going to get faster by October. And so there's the first thing you've got to deal with.
Yeah. Can
there be a deal worked out somewhere? Do you just bring him back for another year and then that's going to expire, that deal? Like that's a huge decision. And then that gets you to Marner. And I just saw a great quote from Trevor Linden. He did an interview in Vancouver about Elias Pettersson. And he said, Pettersson's not in the fight yet. And that's And that's a player that looked on his heels most of that first round series against Nashville. In game 6, I thought, oh, that's the first time he looked up on his toes. It was the first time he looked aggressive. Marner was not in the fight against Boston. He was there and he made some good plays, but you're paying him $10.5 million. And he had 1 goal in 7 games. And in game 7, he made 1 move in the third period. It was spectacular. Off the sideboards, he beat DeBrusque. He came down the slot. He almost scored. That was it. I didn't hear his name again in that game. They needed 1 more goal. They didn't need 4 goals. They needed 1 more.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's a monster deal to contemplate for all the hurdles that are in front of it. No move, 1 year left on his contract, his current salary already, his production in the regular season, because all those things matter.
Sure.
And so he also has to decide, is Toronto the place for him? Is he comfortable here? Does he want to stay? Yeah, because he said, that would be a goal, but, what else is he going to say?
Yeah.
No matter what he said yesterday, it was going to be bandied about and everybody trying to decide what the words actually mean.
Right.
So now him and Darren Ferris can figure out what their next move is, and they can communicate that to the Leafs. But if you're the Leafs, are you all of a sudden going to say, well, here, let's match up your deal with Nylanders?
No.
I don't think so. It's not happening.
No.
And if it is, how many times do they need to see the same movie?
Right.
You know what? I know how some of my favorite movies end. When I watch Field of Dreams, I know Kevin Costner is going to play catch with his dad at the end. Yeah. I don't cry anymore. I cried the first 3 times I watched the movie. And so now I know how the movie's going to end because it happened year after year after year. And it's the same thing with the Leafs.
All right, to the matter at hand, and that is round 2, the all-Canadian matchup, the Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers, game 1 Wednesday night. Oh, there's so many ways to peel this onion. So what do you see? What are your initial thoughts of this series going in?
If I'm the Canucks, I have to find a way to play as tight defensively as I can. Just think of this tightrope you're walking here. I need to be as tight defensively as I can. I need to be as physical as I can. I can't be back on my heels, and I can't take any penalties. That's a pretty thin thread. And so, when my pick of Edmonton in 6 got kicked around Twitter or X yesterday and the day before, since my wife's, of course, assistant GM with the Canucks, I said there is a path to win.
Yeah.
And the path is pretty, it's pretty detailed and it's pretty clear. You can't give Edmonton 4 power plays a game.
No.
Because guaranteed you're at least down 1-0. And if they really get it rolling, then you're down 2-0. Right? And so you got to be physical, but being physical means don't get out of position.
Yeah.
And don't take penalties. And being a really tight checking team, you can't check in your zone. Eventually they break teams down. You got to check up the ice. And so it's a system that I think Rick Tocchet has coached really well. I think he's done an amazing job. He's my vote for Coach of the Year. And they formed an identity to this team that you can see why it works. And that's how they have to play against Edmonton. That's the path. Now, Shelovs has come out of nowhere, even though he was the MVP at the World Championships last year, and given them terrific goaltending after Casey DeSmith gave him an excellent start. But you're still your third string goalie.
I know.
And he's got a hold to get. He seems pretty unfazed, actually.
He does.
He really does. But I think most Canucks fans would rather see Thatcher Demko in there. Why wouldn't you? He's one of the best in the game.
Yeah.
And then you got the Oilers, who I think for them, Dregs, this is the best team they've had at playing and winning in various ways. Like when things don't go their way, like that game in LA when they won 1-0 with they had like 13 shots. They just kept chugging and pulling along and pushing along, and nobody was taking any crazy chances. They weren't trying to win 5-0 in a game that they couldn't do that in. That would have been a different Oilers team. I'm really impressed with where they've come maturity-wise. They've been to the conference finals. They've lost, a tough series to Vegas, who won the Cup last year. I think it's a really good team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a terrific series. Yeah, I'm selfish. I'm in the East. I'd prefer not to have the 10:30 starts, but I still think
there's a theme here. There's a theme here. That's twice you've brought up yourself and selfish in the same sentence.
Yeah, today. Beginning of the pod and towards the end. Yeah, bookending this bad boy.
I'm really putting a theme together here.
All right, you're in the East.
Yes.
Rangers lead the Carolina Hurricanes 1-0. So I do want a quick thought on the direction that series has started to go in very quickly. I don't think anyone is overly surprised, but it's going to be a long and a fun series to watch unfold. Monday night, you had Boston thumping Florida with 5 unanswered goals. Is that a byproduct of Florida just sitting on the sidelines waiting, and then conversely, you've got the Bruins, kind of working off the adrenaline of a 7-game series against the Leafs?
Yeah, I'll start there. I think so. Look, Pasternak scores the overtime winner in Game 7. He gets 4 shots in the first period. Like, you can see where a carryover happens.
Sure.
It's just they just had one day. That's like they're on a regular season schedule, right? Game, fly, game. And Florida had win the series, sit around for a couple of days, watch the other series, and then you saw some pretty uncharacteristic Panther mistakes.
We did, yeah.
And so the thing is, they got to be careful here, because what Dallas just did, lose the first 2 at home and then win the series, does not happen very often.
No.
And so it's not a must win, but whatever's next door to must win is where Game 2 is. Got a little shout out to Brandon Carlo. I just love stuff like that. And you can almost not guarantee, you can bet that when a player has a baby, that next game is going to be really good. You're those of us that are lucky enough to be fathers, you're just on this adrenaline high. Oh my gosh, our baby's here. Baby's healthy, wife is healthy.
So good.
It's the best. And he jumps on a flight. He walks into the rink at 6:00. He probably had a bagel in the airport for pregame, and walked right to the rink and scored. It's not like he scores very often. And he's a super, super nice guy. He really is. 8 years in Boston. I just want to say congratulations to him and his family. I love that stuff. I'm a sucker for it.
Yeah. Well, and quick thought on Justin Brazeau. Okay. And the reason I bring it up, so I remember just tweeting when this kid signed with the Marlies. He comes out of North Bay in the Ontario League. He's a 20-year-old, had a fantastic year. A late bloomer. No question about that. So anyway, I'm going back and forth this morning, and I'm trying to remind myself, well, how did he end up in Providence and then obviously with the Bruins? And the Marlies simply called him, so this is the Dubas management regime, and said, sorry, we're not going to sign you. We don't have room in the organization, so good luck. The kid is skating and then, enrolled at the University of Toronto and gets a call from Providence to say, hey, we've got a spot for you here in the American League. Are you interested? And now here we are. You've got a 6'5", 225-pound hulking winger who seems to be a nice fit for the Boston Bruins.
So one addition to that, he was on an American League deal until January.
Yeah.
He wasn't even eligible to be called up. And then the Bruins ran into a little bit of injury problems. So, they put together a deal that I'm sure took 7 minutes, right? Because it's not like it's I'm going to hold out for this or that.
No.
And he gets called up. So the guy is huge. He's got if, I get to stand there. So the other day, I'm like, his arms are like a basketball player's, like they're so long. And then I look down at his skates.
Oh,
it's
boats?
His feet are enormous. And I'm like, no wonder this guy was a late bloomer.
Yeah.
Like he had to grow into all of this. And he's got good hands. In Game 7, his line with JVR and Trent Frederick was by far the best line for the Bruins. Wasn't even close.
Something?
That kid should have scored twice in Game 7. He scored a beauty in Game 1. And one of those stories that gets washed under all the, the bigger headlines. But man, that kid had nothing given to him.
Yeah.
He's a legit NHLer.
And look, I didn't bring it up to crap on the Leafs and management decisions. It's
and they got to make 100 of those. They got to make 100 of those decisions all the time. And and in the middle of all that was the pandemic,
which really mucked up, his process.
Him and a lot of kids just kind of got lost, and but here he is. He's in the playoffs. He's probably waking up today in the Four Seasons or wherever they're, and he's like, I just scored in the playoffs. This is crazy.
All right, those are your headlines. Thank you, Tim Hortons.
Introducing Tim's new flatbread pizza. Freshly prepared and served hot out of the oven. Available in chicken parmesan, pepperoni, bacon everything, and simply cheese. There's a new Tim's run in town. New flatbread pizza. Try one today.
Our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to us by Canadian Club 1858 Original. Ask Ray and Dregs anything. You can send us your questions on X, Instagram, at Ray and Dregs, or on the website, rayandregs.com. Quentin Ray has an Oiler-related question. He says, look, I'm an Oilers fan, and I've heard plenty about the 1-3-1 played against the Los Angeles Kings. So Quentin is asking, why would you have your entire team play one system, if in fact that is the case? If you have different players' strengths on different lines, could you have them play different systems to be less predictable? Sometimes the point is predictability and routine, right? Like get in the habit of playing a system. So he's saying, why wouldn't you have your speedy lines play in the forecheck and your slower grinders play that more defensive stuff?
The reason is so, let's say you're halfway through a line change. Puck gets chipped into the other zone.
Yeah.
So you've got two of your offensive players on the ice with one of your checking players because the line can't make a full change. Yeah. And you've got one skilled defenseman on the ice with one defensive defenseman. So now you're going to try and get 5 guys to play 2 different systems at the same time on the ice. So 2 guys are racing in for the forecheck, 1 guy standing at center ice. One defenseman's pinching down the walls, the other guy's back at center ice.
Yeah.
It would be like the visual would be like a slalom downhill course. You'd have guys all over the place. And so it cannot work in that regard. The Detroit used to do it a little bit with the Russian 5.
Yeah.
Because those 5 would go on the ice all the time together. And when they would start on a face-off and they would just play their system until they left the ice. And like those 5 could do it. It just is impossible with the way players change, the way lines change. It would be impossible. So the coach tries to devise a system that's best for everybody, knowing that this is our system, but Connor McDavid's going to do a few different things.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Quentin. Our good friend Will. Ray, would you touch the Stanley Cup if you could?
Yeah. The only way I would is if there is a parade in Vancouver and the cup is in our backyard at some time. Right. And the only reason I would touch it would be because my wife would have it.
And it's an extension of you, family, all of that. I can appreciate that.
I've never touched it. I've never taken a picture with it. I won't.
Interesting.
And if Cammie wanted me to be in that picture, I absolutely would.
Yeah.
But that would be the only way I would touch it.
You wouldn't stand next to it. You would stand on the other side of Cammie. She's standing next to it.
There is an honor of having your name on that cup.
Yeah.
That it's everything that I respect about the game
Yeah.
really is on that trophy, and everything that's gone into winning it.
Mm.
And as hard as I tried, I was never lucky enough or good enough or whatever it was to be in that place.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's in a place where I'd just rather keep it there.
I so admire and respect that position. I understand it. I mean, it doesn't apply to me, obviously, didn't play. And I have had my picture taken, and I have touched it, with buddies who are visiting the Hall of Fame and all
Dregs,
that. So,
the first year I retired was 2003.
Mhm.
That was the Jersey, who were they playing? Jersey Anaheim Stanley Cup.
yeah.
Game 7 was in Jersey. Mike Rupp scored 2 goals. I had never been in close proximity of the cup. So I was going on the ice to do some interviews after the game. And the cup keepers had the cup. It was all shined up and polished. It was in the Zamboni entrance. And I was like, I don't know, 20 feet from it. I'm like, the emotion that I felt seeing it, I've seen it my whole life. I've seen it on TV. It was right there. And it was so shiny. And I was like, oh my, like, look at, I froze. I froze. It was, I'll never forget that.
We got to wrap here, but what would you do with it? If you'd won it, your day, Ray Ferraro's day with the company, today would look different in what you would do with it than back
You're
in the day
thinking
when you were
about in
playing.
1993
Yes.
when we were,
Yeah.
it would have been in Trail.
Yeah.
Would have brought it back. I would have just reveled in my dad's eyes
Yeah.
looking at the cup.
So
Like it
good.
almost makes me start to cry to think about what it would have been like. We would have had it at the golf course. I would have had it at the lake, and I would have had it at Corpac, which is my dad's cement company that they started in 1947, that my oldest and younger brothers still run now. And that's it. Yeah, that's where I would have brought it.
What a wonderful question by Will. Thanks, Will. That was awesome. All right, buddy. Yeah, we know what you're doing. You're living
but
the
Dregs,
broadcast
good
dream.
news though.
Okay, what's up?
Game 2 tonight.
Yes.
Canes at Rangers.
Yeah.
6 a.m. flight tomorrow home.
Okay.
And then fly back Sunday for what I assume would be Game 5 on Monday.
Okay.
Like
good.
I don't
Little
think
break.
anybody thinks this is a 4-game series.
No.
And so I got a couple of days off. I'm tired of for those watching. My suitcase is already packed on one side of the bed.
Look at that.
Oh, I'm ready to go. And I'm tired of wearing those clothes. And those clothes told me, Dregs, no more. I don't want to be worn. Please wash me.
Yeah. Extra duty laundry.
Oh, you
detergent
betcha.
Needed immediately.
Yeah. So
All
I'm
right,
going to go
buddy.
home and spend the weekend at home.
Excellent. Well, you've earned it. Travel safe and play a little golf.
I'm
Enjoy
going to give it a
yourself.
go. I'm going to watch the Canucks' first 2 playoff games
Yeah.
against the Oilers. I don't know if I'm in the building or not, but I'm going to enjoy the weekend at home. I hope you have a great weekend too, Dregs. And everybody, thanks for listening. And we'll check in. Oh, what day is it? Tuesday. I guess we'll check in Friday. Friday. So
All right, buddy.
we'll talk to you later this week. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs, our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey and Tim Hortons. Until next time, enjoy the playoffs and stay safe, everybody.